Hello to everyone. Welcome back to my channel. As usual, like and subscribe to my channel. So, as soon as an interview finish on the radio station, messages start popping in, and some people want to put me in certain things that I'm not getting myself involved in because I'm not here to judge anybody who put themselves on the radio station to answer questions to the press. That is their way of doing things, and nobody gonna get me involved with certain things. That's one thing for sure. I am smart enough not to get myself involved to judge anybody who chooses a particular way of coming to the people to say that they are contesting in the next election. Everybody have strengths and everybody have weaknesses, and that's all I have to say on that. So they asked me about the questions, some of the questions that they were asking, like constitution and food security. Now, let me just touch on food security quickly. Food security is extremely important to Montserrat. Lately, we have had a situation where majority of people are dying from cancer. I am a very health conscious person, as most people know. I don't eat certain things and I don't drink certain things. So that simply means when it comes to the security of food, I take it very serious. Now, majority of stuff that we buy and bring into Montserrat, we don't know how these things were made, how they were packaged, how the processing goes. And that is one of the issues that we're having in Montreal. Whenever you buy food, you have no idea how this food were prepared. And from working in customs, I know majority of stuff that as sold to Montreal, they're not really grade A. And that's all I'm gonna say about that part because that's what I know. Majority of food that we get here is not the best quality of food. Therefore, it is very important that the government of Montreal understand again that private sector development is important, and private sector also involves farming and the farmers. There are people in Montserrat that I know who are interested in doing pig farming and just pig farming only. I know a man who wants to get into pig farming. All he needs is the piece of land and he needs some help from government. He wants to have at least 200 pigs. I know some people who are interested in sheep and goats. All they need is some help from government. They need the land and they need some help with the buildings. No longer do people do animal farming and you let them out in the farm in the bush and they browse around and that happens no more. The whole farming business is different now. So even in case that we have people in Monster who want to do pig farming, want to deal with sheep, goat, and we have people that deal with chicken, and we have people that deal with eggs. All we basically need to do now is to actually help these people. That's all we have to do, help the people to develop their business so that we don't have to concentrate on getting food from places to which we have no control and have no idea where these food or how they put these food together. Sometimes the government may have to subsidize, especially when you're dealing with farming, a government need to subsidize the farmers. We have people who are interested in vegetables. But if in case you know anything about farming, when you plant a seed, it takes up to 3 months. For example, when you plant potatoes, you have to check back on that potato in 3 months. So between the time you plant the vine for the potato and the 3 months, the farmer needs some kind of subsidy so that they could continue doing other stuff. So government has to find a way now to subsidize farmers because food security is important to the development of the country. So when the question keep arising, how do you deal with food security? Food security. Yes, food security is extremely important, and the government has a part to play when it comes to food security. Also, when food comes into Montserrat, you have the phytosanitary engineers who check the food, they feel the food, they look at the food, but that is not enough. I was watching a show on YouTube, and they're saying to you, just looking at the food, touching the food without taking samples and taking that sample and put it into a lab and check the food doesn't really make much sense. because just looking at something doesn't make sense. I remember checking a container once, and the importer had a frozen container. And inside the frozen container, the importer had all kind of dry goods that were not supposed to be in the container. And when we talk about food security also, Ministry of Health has to do their part continuously. You go into shops and the food that you see in the shops already spoiled or no good. And these items should be taken out of the shops. It's not that every now and then thing that you go and check. Ministry of Health has to send their engineers out to the shops to check on the food because it must be a reason why all of a sudden a lot of people are dying from cancer. So I personally believe a lot of the issues with cancer because of what we eat or we ingest cause issues for the population in Montserrat. That's my thought. So when it comes to food security, as a health conscious person, I personally believe that the government definitely have to step up the game in terms of pushing the private sector, pushing the farmers, everybody who is in the farming industry, they need to get some kind of subsidy as long as farming is the business that you're into. And we have to push the farmers to be able to produce enough food that we could stop the imports of certain products that you're going to bring into Montreal. And then we go on to the question they asked me now, constitution. Constitution. I have actually been reading the Constitution. I actually have a copy of the Constitution in my hand. Yeah, if you can see it, I have a copy of the Constitution and I have been making notes and so forth. It is very important that when you want to fill a position that you actually read books like this, Constitution, income tax laws and so forth. You know, I have all kind of books that I actually read up on. I just print stuff and read on them because it is important to understand what you're talking about. The Constitution Order 2010, this mark here, 2010, 2000, yeah, 2010. This is showing is the law as of January 1st, 2013. Right, so Constitution. Since 2013 to now is more than 10 years. And lately, we have been hearing people say the Constitution needs to be reviewed. Yes, I guess there are some parts in the Constitution that needs to be reviewed. But you have to start thinking about this. How come all of a sudden the governor has too much power? How come the governor have too much power all of a sudden when the powers were already in the Constitution from the beginning? And some people are saying that the new governor, you know, is pushing or has a certain attitude that is different to past governors. Let me say something basically. The Constitution is very clear. Yes, there are some things that can be reviewed, but we have to understand United Kingdom owns Montserrat and they send the governor to represent King Charles. The governor represents King Charles. The governor has a job and the governor has to report back. The governor has to report back to England on many matters relating to Montserrat. The premier also has a job, and in the constitution, the premier gives the constitution gives the premier powers. Before the last 5 years, people were not really complaining about the powers that the governor have. The powers have always been in the constitution. It simply means that whoever is in power and not doing their job, the governor sees it fit to do their job for them. That's what it simply means. So if in case that you have somebody in a position and they're not doing their job, then the person who is in charge have to now step in and do their job. If you have a premier and you have ministers and the minister is not doing their job, then the premier will have to step in and do the job for the minister. I've seen that before. They call some people dictator. But at the end of the day, some ministers just are not doing their job. They're not doing their part. Everybody wants to be a part of something, but when you catch yourself and you really check on these people, they're not able to do what you expected them to do. And they would actually just point to the person in charge, point to the person in charge. I run a business and I don't have to be a dictator for the business because the people that I hire to do my business, they're able to do what they're supposed to do. So when you read the Constitution, it says Cabinet shall have the general direction and control of the government of Montserrat and shall be collectively responsible for it to the Legislative Assembly. This simply says to you that the Premier and his ministers have power over the government of Montserrat. They have the power, but if in case you don't know how to use your powers, then the governor will have to step in and use them for you. It's very simple as that. Yes, there might be some parts in the Constitution that need to be reviewed, but at the end of the day, the people that you put in position, they have to be able to manage. They have to be able to show that they are in charge. And if in case they can't show that they are in charge, you have to be like me, I don't take nonsense. If I'm in charge of a ministry, I am in charge of that ministry. If I was in charge of Ministry of Communication, I was Ministry of Agriculture or Ministry of Education. Once I'm in charge, I am in charge. That's me. You give me that power, then I am in charge of that ministry. The premier is in charge of Montserrat according to the constitution, and the premier has powers. So if the premier has powers, then the premier needs to use the powers and say to the governor, regard your respect, governor, I have the power to do X, Y, and Z, so therefore I need to do what I have to do. Because the governor did not hire the premier. The people of Montserrat hire the premier, you represent the people of Montserrat. The premier needs to let the governor know that it is not you who hired me, it's the people of Montserrat that hired me. And I believe that the governor has Montserrat's best interests at heart, but the governor realized that whoever is in charge, the people that are in charge, they're not doing what they're supposed to do, so I have to step in and do what I have to do to protect my job. Because remember that the governor has a job and the governor has to report back to United Kingdom. And that's what I have to say. So in terms of people wanting me to get into certain things to actually speak about how people did on their interview, and I'm not going to even get into that because that is not my business. That's their way of doing things, and that's just their way of doing things. This is my way of doing things. I use a forum that I could actually use every single day and not have to go to a radio station to actually communicate with people, because we already know these people who are going on the radio, they're not going to go there all the time. But I have a platform that I use that I could actually communicate. After this, I'm going to go on the road to do my business. But I'm using a platform that I could always use to communicate with people. So who want to go on the radio and do what they have to do, that's their business. Thank you. Have a good day.